Good evening. This is the Angry Capitalist. The date is currently November 29th, 2023. And it's somewhat unfortunate that a individual whom I really looked up to and admired has passed away today. Not a direct friend or family member in any sense, but still someone I looked up to. Early this morning, we lost Charlie Munger. For those of you who don't know of him, immediately upon hearing the name, this is a partner to Warren Buffett. A very successful investor and businessman, and the vice president to Berkshire Hathaway. It was about 2 years prior to this when I had first really dove into Charlie Munger as a figure as well as a source of insight and wisdom when it comes to business, finance, and investing. And coincidentally, along with that, just general common life sense. Stuff that seems extremely common sense, straightforward, worldly wisdom. But because it's so simple and straightforward, it's not something that people really take the time to be intentional about. Although I had previously used what are called mental models for myself, I didn't know what they were. With the introduction of learning about Charlie Munger, it was like, that's what I'm doing. And learning about his framework and the different mental models that he used really helped me out. These are often expressed in what are called Mungerisms. And with today being the day that we lose this, for me at least, very important figure, I wanted to go over a few of my favorite Mungerisms or mental models that I learned from Charlie Munger. As is right, the first one that I'm going to dive into, with Charlie Munger now being amongst the dead, the first one I'm going to refer to is make friends with the imminent dead. For Charlie Munger, this was reflected in the form of various biographies, especially Benjamin Franklin, as well as a few others. Many others, in fact. He was an avid reader. But effectively, by getting to know people who are no longer with us and getting to learn about their lives, their experiences, perspectives, their successes and their failings, just like how you're going to take after the 5 people that you're around the most. Well, that could also be applied to the imminent dead. Provided you read about them, you get to know them, and especially if you can, read their words or listen to with the modern technology. If you're able to surround yourself and take insight from people, even if they're not with us anymore, you can still take advantage of that and use that just like if you got to know them in person. In one particular, I don't know if it was in Poor Charlie's almanac or if it were within a different document or maybe a talk that he gave. If I remember correctly, he had spoken about how by getting to know this individual through their writing, you can use their perspectives on things in your current situation, almost as if they were giving you that advice directly. Next, this is one of my favorite ones. It's referred to as invert, always invert. Effectively, if you have a problem that you're trying to solve, sometimes one of the best and easiest ways to solve that problem is inverting it on its head. During his youth, Charlie Munger was in the air traffic control, and so he was effectively he was the guy in the tower for, if I remember correctly, it was the Air Corps or later the Air Force. And he approached the situation and the problem by like, okay, what is going to kill a pilot? It's not turbulence or anything like that, but these specific weather conditions, low visibility, icing conditions to where you can get icing on the wings. If I remember correctly, he was stationed in Alaska. So those two factors, that's what's going to kill a pilot. So if you take a situation and you flip it on its head, and rather than just looking at how can I succeed at this, look at, well, what are going to be my biggest pitfalls? How can I fail at this? These are just a few different examples of how you can take this very broad Mungerism or mental model and apply it. My next one, this gets a little bit deeper into the weeds, but I still really enjoy and find this one useful. That being to know the big ideas and the big disciplines and to use them routinely if you can. What that effectively is that you want to know the bedrock foundational concepts that are used and the most proven in various disciplines. So, for example, you should know the foundational bedrock about the biggest ideas in economics, science as a whole, engineering, politics even, or psychology. Effectively, by getting to know the core concepts in different disciplines, it'll help you to have a more rounded perspective of the world and how it works. If you just know if you're very detailed in one discipline, could you take those insights from that discipline and apply them elsewhere? Yes, absolutely you can. But in order to be very effective as a person in life or in business, you should take sources from all around you, from all different fields, disciplines, avenues of study, schools of thought, etc. The next mental model or Mungerism that I want to bring up is the Lollapalooza effect. In my own words, how I'd like to describe this is it's a runaway reaction which stems from multiple different forces converging. Recently, the movie Oppenheimer has been released. And with a fission nuclear reaction, what you'll have happen is that if you break an atom or a few atoms, as those atoms break apart, they will release neutrons, which will collide into other atoms, breaking them. And then that same process of those atoms throwing off neutrons will break others, thus creating this chain reaction that we're looking for. So effectively, we can have a relatively, in comparison, smaller force, or better yet, multiple forces all converging in the same direction, which will produce a exponential result. This can be applied to looking at economic systems. This is something that I especially try to utilize quite frequently. So if you're looking at the system for how a business is run, whether it's your own or if it's one you're looking to invest in, you want to look for different factors that are going to compound. The fifth and last mental model or Mungerism that I'll bring up for this is to know your circle of competence. Briefly, I'll put an asterisk in this to not take this as a indication to limit yourself or to stick to what you know and to never venture, explore, or experiment outside of it. That being said, if you are called to make a decision, once again, whether it's in life, business, or investing, be very wary about making decisions that are outside of your sphere of competence, your sphere of knowledge, or capability. Sometimes, unless you have to, sometimes the best decision is no decision. Vice versa, go back to invert, always invert. By knowing your circle of competence and knowing where you're currently at, that can give you some enlightenment to know which kind of problems you can take on and tackle that you are capable of dealing with. Additionally, by knowing your current circle of competence, that can expose potential weaknesses, and perhaps you need to expand. Maybe you need to read a little bit more up on certain disciplines, topics, in order to be more effective or in order to pursue your goals. Well, once again, it's not like I knew this guy personally, but watching videos of him speaking at the stockholders meetings for Berkshire Hathaway, various interviews, literally reading his book. I have a copy of, or one of his books. I've got a copy of Poor Charlie's Almanac, expanded 3rd edition, The Wit and Wisdom of Charles T Munger. So once again, although I did not actually know him, this stings a bit because it's like losing an old friend. But with the advent of having the recordings of him and with the writings that he's put out, he's still here and he's still with us. And because of that, although I went over these different lessons that I learned from him, if you're listening to this, I strongly recommend that you go and learn more about him yourself. If you want to, feel free to get a copy of the Poor Charlie's Almanac or various other written works that he's done. Additionally, feel free to go ahead and just check out some of his best highlight moments on YouTube. I'll leave this with just saying, rest easy, Charlie. And thanks for all the lessons. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. or listening to this podcast on whatever platform you are viewing it on or listening to it on. If you like the kind of content that I'm putting out, please feel free to go ahead and comment down below, like, subscribe, maybe share it with someone. If you have any questions or anything that you would like an expansion on that is in line with this podcast, please, once again, go ahead and comment that down below. I'm definitely open to suggestions, and thank you for listening. Take care.